Show them what they are.
Welcome back to Marvelous Videos. I'm Rylan, Red Hood, the iconic young vigilante anti-hero in the DC Universe. Well, there have been several Red Hoods before, but there is one that we remember the most, and that is Jason Todd. Towering at 6 feet tall, boasting 225 pounds of pure muscle, and filled to the brim with rage, Jason Todd is the most memorable Red Hood in the DC Universe. While fighting with 2 guns is something that is a staple for him, that is not all that he can do. Putting Olympic athletes to shame when it comes to his strength, his speed, and his durability, Jason has proven himself to be the peak human when it comes to fitness several times. So, in today's episode, we will be taking a deeper dive into what made Jason Todd the way he is, his powers and his strengths, and why his Red Hood is just so memorable. But before we get into our explanation, we do just have one very small request. If you enjoy our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is just one small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thanks. Now, let's begin.
You'll be hearing a lot around here. Red Hood.
Who is Red Hood? Jason Todd was first introduced in the comic book series because Batman needed a sidekick, and his original Robin, Dick Grayson, had now become Nightwing. Jason had a hard time growing up. He was the son of Willis Todd and Dr. Sheila Haywood. But during his parents' divorce, his mother had to give up her parental rights to Catherine Todd, Willis's new wife. Catherine was a drug addict who, in her drug-fueled haze, was never present for Jason, eventually overdosing, and Willis, at some point, worked for Two-Face and died at the hands of the criminal. Jason was left to fend for himself, turning to crime as push came to shove, and Jason became extremely good at stealing tires. When he was stealing tires from the Batmobile, Batman found him. He was sent to Ma Gunn's school while Batman acted as his benefactor. But Jason quickly found out that Gunn's nefarious intentions with the children and ran away. Together with Batman, Jason brought down Gunn and became Robin at a mere age of 12. Jason and Batman had quite a few adventures together, which sadly ended when Jason was attacked and killed by the Joker. When Jason was resurrected using the Lazarus Pit, he became the quick-witted, mean vigilante anti-hero that we all know and love today as the Red Hood. He can be resurrected even after his death. One of the most tragic, cynical storylines ever displayed in comics was A Death in the Family. As we've mentioned before, Jason was taken away from his birth mother, Sheila Haywood. So when Jason realized his mother was alive and well, hiding somewhere in the Middle East, he decided to go for it. Jason didn't inform Bruce about it, but it turns out that he didn't need to, because Bruce was already in the Middle East, following Joker. After reuniting with his mother in Ethiopia, Jason learned that Joker was holding his mother hostage, well, in a way, by holding her past criminal records against her. Hoping to foil Joker's plans and save his mother, Jason tailed them to their warehouse. Bruce was not with him at the time when he went all out to save his mother, but Sheila betrays Jason to save her secret, which leads to Joker gaining the upper hand. Joker brutally beats Jason with a crowbar and leaving him to die with his mother by activating the bomb in the warehouse. Jason musters whatever energy he can to untie his mother and urged her to save herself, but it was too late. The bomb went off and they both died. But Jason didn't stay dead forever. Superboy Prime, an evil alternate version superhero, punched reality so hard that it shook things up, literally, by killing some off and resurrecting others. And you guessed it, Jason was one of those people who were resurrected. His mental state wasn't exactly in the best condition when he woke up from the coma that followed his resurrection. The amnesia had rendered him almost a husk of the person that he once was. This was when Talia al Ghul, the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, found Jason. She tried her best to make Jason stable for years to come, but the extent of damage that his psyche took was far too great for her to fix. Ra's al Ghul was not exactly happy with his daughter wasting her time on a failed project like Jason and told her to get rid of him. But Talia decided to give Jason one last shot, dipping him into the Lazarus Pit, helping Jason regain his mental strength and make a miraculous recovery. This was when Talia implied that Jason's death was not properly respected and avenged by Bruce, which led to Jason taking the moniker of Red Hood and going after Bruce.
Returned to this world, but returned damaged.
Did Red Hood turn into a metahuman after bathing in the Lazarus Pit? While one might ponder if Jason became a metahuman after coming out of the Lazarus Pit, that is just simply not correct. That is because Jason does not have any superpowers. The Lazarus Pit did not give Jason any powers that would be considered super, but the pit did make him an enhanced version of himself. Unlike Roz, who used the pit to be younger, Jason used it to regain his mental strength and his memories. The pit gave him his memories back, along with a few amazing features like enhanced speed and enhanced strength. His durability also increased several folds after the Lazarus Pit resurrected him. His healing abilities were increased, and his skin became fireproof. With all these features in mind, Jason is not exactly a metahuman, but he does come extremely close to being one, thanks of course to the Lazarus Pit. Does he have magical abilities? After Jason was resurrected, he went through training with the All-Caste, a group of warrior monks. Dukra, the leader of the All-Caste, trained him. They sharpened his abilities to fight, making him a master in combat as well as meditation, which allowed Jason to find peace in himself. In the Gotham Knights gameplay, we get to see Jason harness the power of his soul and use it as a supernatural power. A good example of that is Mystical Leap Power, which Jason uses to almost fly across the city of Gotham. But this is not the only time when we have heard of Jason being able to use supernatural powers. In the 25th issue of Red Hood and the Outlaws, we get to see Talia teach him a particular technique that she is unable to perform herself. In her own words, Jason is someone who has a force of true good that is capable of delivering. This particular force comes in very handy in the 27th issue, where Jason is facing off against Ra. Using his powers, he is able to summon magical weapons and effectively save the world. We do not get to see him use this power again, but knowing that he's able to harness such great power is quite interesting. He can summon a pair of mystical blades. Every single superhero, anti-hero, or villain has their choice of weapon. You can almost not imagine them without it. When it comes to Red Hood, he's no different. It always happens to be his two pistols. But in some issues of Red Hood and the Outlaws, we get to see Jason Todd wielding something else. He wields something called All Blades. These blades are magical and have to be summoned. When Jason was resurrected, he was sent to the All-Caste to train. The All-Caste and their training helped Jason to find the darkest parts of himself and do good with them. One of the biggest things that Jason struggles with throughout the comics is his rage. Jason is angry, and that rage is what helps him summon all the blades. Using his rage and life force, Jason wields the All Blades. These blades can be summoned at will and work best when in the presence of true evil. We get to see Jason use the All Blades against the Untitled, the enemy clan of the All-Caste. We also see him defeat an Amazonian warrior called Aquila with his blades. These blades work magnificently, and Jason is only able to work them when he is too exhausted or injured severely in combat, as these blades are fueled by his life force and his rage. He is mentally so much stronger than we thought. Jason is one of the most mentally anguished characters in the whole DC universe. He has been through so much, from his stepmother overdosing and his father being killed off by Two-Face, leaving him an orphan at a very young age, fending for himself to being older and finally reuniting with his birth mother, only to be betrayed by her and then die in a bomb explosion. That makes quite a lot of plot for a soap opera. When the Lazarus Pit resurrected him, his memories were restored, but his rage was amplified. Struggling with so much rage strained his relationship with everyone. But as if that wasn't enough, Joker decided to make matters even worse. He first tried to get Jason under fire for drugging Isabel, which of course he had not done. Then, after gassing and kidnapping Jason, Joker admitted that he had been torturing Jason with all his lies for his own agenda, which can be very harrowing to realize. While Jason processed that bit, he was forced to fight against Red Robin. Luckily, both of them worked together to escape Joker, but the escape lasted only momentarily because he was once again kidnapped. This time, when Jason woke up, he woke up to the horrifying visual of his face being cut off and placed in front of him. But it was just a prank after all, because that had not really happened. Joker had actually gassed him, and expected him and the others that Joker had captured to fight to the death. That plan failed miserably because everybody, including Jason, was able to fight against Joker's mind control because of the bond that they had shared. You would think that this would be all, but unfortunately it's not. After Jason visited Bruce and Alfred, Jason fell victim to Joker's last-ditch effort, an acid attack. Jason's helmet was rigged with acid, and even though Bruce was prompt on his feet to get rid of the helmet, the acid left quite severe burns. In the 18th issue of Red Hood and the Outlaws, we get a detailed and gut-wrenching experience as we follow through Jason's nightmares from the acid attack. Once he woke up from the coma, he reconciled with Batman when he found the latter by his bedside. With all these experiences, we can definitely say that Jason is truly the most resilient character we have seen in the Bat family. Why does he get white hair? We are not the only ones who would do a drastic hair change whenever our life faces a major change. Hair is a huge part of our identity, and seeing Jason do the same makes him very relatable. Jason has a very strange relationship with his hair. In the very beginning, as a 12-year-old, when he first became Robin, Jason repeatedly dyed his hair red because he really wanted to fill in the boots and be a good Robin. Obviously, this was him acting as a replacement for Dick Grayson and not truly being himself. Because of that, as we move forward with his character development, we get to see him accept his red hair completely. Now, coming to the white patch of hair that we see him with in Hush, in this universe, at this time, Jason was still dead. There was a 6-month gap between Jason's death and his resurrection. During this time, Thomas Elliot, or Hush, decided to mess with Batman's head because Batman was still grieving over the loss of Jason. Elliot and Clayface worked together, and the latter showed up in front of Batman. He decided to be an aged-up version of Jason, with that prominent streak of white hair. Even if Jason finds the white streak as something to hide, Red Hood fans unanimously agree that the white hair streak really makes Jason look quite handsome. Red Hood becomes a master of a technique called the language of combat. The Bat family may not accept Jason for his anger issues, but everyone agrees that when it comes to one thing, his fighting abilities, Jason is one of the greatest fighters in the DC universe. Jason works with brutality. He is not focused on agility. His punches are not meant to hurt the opponents, they are meant to kill them. In order to make his hands his biggest and best weapons, Jason has trained a lot in different styles of martial arts. He is well versed in well-known martial combat styles like karate, aikido, taekwondo, krav maga, kickboxing, and capoeira. But he also has knowledge in ninjutsu, savate, dimmak, and eskrima. Notably, Lady Shiva, one of the strongest and most feared fighters in the DC universe, was Jason's mentor when it came to dimmak, the fighting style where you render your opponent paralyzed by striking several vital points. He was trained by Batman when he first worked as Robin, and after his resurrection, he trained with Allcast. He is Allcast's most successful pupil, which led him to learning a lot of secrets that perhaps a lot of others don't know. On top of all this, he was taught the language of combat by Bruce himself. Language of combat is a way of communication with your opponents through punches and kicks. Instead of verbally exchanging statements, the language of combat lets you communicate through your punches and blows. Each blow that collides with your opponent sends them a message, because strength is not about charging at your enemies with confidence. Language of combat forces you to understand your strengths and your weaknesses, and then transform those weaknesses into your strengths. This is something that Jason used to his fullest extent during combat. By the time that he was done training, he was strong enough to beat Ra's al Ghul in hand-to-hand combat, along with a weakened Deathstroke, which was a huge feat. How did he become a priest? The multiverse exists in the DC universe as well, and when Flash goes back in time to save his mother, he ends up turning the universe upside down. A lot of things happen very differently in the Flashpoint timeline, the most notable being Jason never became the Red Hood. You see, in this timeline, Thomas Wayne became Batman, and in the cruel twist of fate, Martha Wayne became the Joker. In this timeline, Jason never met Bruce, and never became Robin. You would think that not becoming Robin, he would be able to escape his fate of dying and resurrecting, but unfortunately that's not true. Even in this time, Jason has a hard time and mysteriously dies, only to be brought back into life. But instead of being the rage-filled anti-hero that we have grown to adore, this time he's a priest. He is kind, compassionate, and is something that Jason has always needed in his life.
You can't stop crime. That's what you never understood. I'm controlling you.
Does he have peak human strength? We know that Jason has trained for quite a while. He is well versed in different martial arts styles, but that's not the only thing that he has. Weighing at 225 pounds, Jason is a powerhouse. In every panel of the comics, we can see his physique develop. Before he died at the hands of Joker, Jason was a very well-trained athlete and fighter, but that all changed after his resurrection. As we know, Jason was resurrected, and Talia, in order to save Jason, dipped him in the Lazarus Pit. The Lazarus Pit gave Jason the ability to push his body further than he had ever pushed before. The Lazarus Pit essentially unlocked his true potential, granting him peak human strength, peak human agility, and enhanced endurance, which Jason benefits from in the later issues. Does he have a love interest? Can he reproduce? Jason Todd is one of the more lone wolf types of guys. With how much trauma he has gone through, he clearly needs a lot of therapy. However, that's not exactly stopped him from trying to date women. He has had quite a few different flings in his time in the DC universe. We get to see his character go through many trials and tribulations in the hands of the titular villains that he faces off against. But does that exactly give him enough character growth to go from being a lone wolf and actually sustaining a healthy relationship with women in his life? The answer to that is both yes and no. We get to see him have small crushes and almost will they won't they relationships with several characters, such as Donna Troy and Artemis. Both of these women are significant in his life. Donna was one of the first superheroes that Jason considered a friend, while when it comes to Artemis, they have been several clear as day signs that both of them love each other very much. But at the end of the day, nothing really comes out of Artemis and Jason's relationship because both of them refuse to accept their love for each other to be more than just a mere friendly one, much to the chagrin of devoted fans. His relationship with Ravager and Essence, daughter of Slade Wilson, also known as Deathstroke, and Dukra respectively, have been mentioned offhandedly over the comics. While these female characters are strong and important in his character growth, we barely know much about their relationship besides a few offhanded comments. But the two most significant romantic relationships in his life are the relationships with Isabel Ardila and Barbara Gordon. In the case of Isabel Ardila, she was a flight attendant with whom Jason was in a relationship with for quite a while. This is the only romantic relationship of Jason that we get to see unfold in front of our eyes, instead of the flashbacks that we saw in the case of all her predecessors. Jason was a simple human. Jason and Isabel's relationship started off with a boring date, which changed its course when aliens kidnapped them and took them off to space. Starting off like that, and instead of the relationship falling apart, Isabel chose to stay with him, and their relationship deepened. But as Isabel is not a superhero, she is often targeted by the villains, which leads to her getting in harm's way quite often. She even spent some time trapped in the All Blades. Overall, because of the villains, the relationship fell apart, as her safety was not something that Jason had wanted to take a chance on. Lastly, we have Jason's relationship with Barbara Gordon. Barbara, also known as Batgirl, is Jason's crush. Even when Barbara hits on Jason, the latter rejects all her advances because he feels that he's not good enough for her. But over time, we see that their relationship develops, and Jason genuinely considers leaving the vigilante anti-hero life just to be with Barbara. Jason confesses that Barbara makes him a better person, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to fix their relationship. He left a heartfelt note for Barbara stating all of the above, but that got swept away by a janitor, which stopped the two allies from ever getting into a relationship. However, their friendship is very important to Jason, as they both bonded over the shared trauma that they faced at the hands of Joker. In short, Jason is definitely a man who needs a lot of therapy to deal with his issues first, but he also definitely deserves love. And while he has given Cupid a chance, sadly, Cupid has not returned the favor as nicely as he would have deserved. Given that Jason is still only human, and there have been not really any mentions of his inability to reproduce, I think we can safely assume that if he wanted to, Jason could very much be able to father a child. Marvelous verdict. Jason Todd may not be the only Red Hood, but he is most certainly the most popular one. Even as Robin, Jason's personality and backstory have shined through. His character arc is rather depressing with how much torture the Joker puts him through. But even still, we can look to Jason for inspiration, because no matter what, Jason always pulls himself together. Jason had struggled to find his identity after being tortured by the Joker, but he has also found peace in knowing that he has made himself the way he is. And I believe that a lot of us can look up to that. He is resilient, he is strong, and although he has some anger issues, he is a very admirable character for always being honest about himself. And that is what truly makes Jason Todd a fan favorite. What are your thoughts on Jason Todd or the Red Hood? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, have a good one and be safe.
Show them what they are.